how to hire top 1% appointment setters in the interview process. The interview questions that instantly reveal top performers. Most founders hire based on experience. Top performing companies, coaches, and agencies hire based on adaptability, coachability, persistence, and problem solving. These traits only reveal themselves under the pressure that you apply. So number one is we're going to look at the questions, the single interview questions that separates elite setters from average ones. Number two is the traits. So what actually predicts long-term setter success in a team or a high volume team. Number three is the red flags. So what weak candidates reveal about themselves without realizing it. And number four is the framework. So the hiring system used to build consistently high performing setting teams. If you're wondering who I am, my name's Adam. I run apexsetting.com. We basically have been helping coaches and businesses to source, interview hundreds and thousands of setters, hire them, train them, manage them to produce results, to book calls every single day. So number one is most founders hire setters the wrong way. When founders sit down to interview appointment setters, they naturally reach for the most familiar screening questions. They ask about their experience, their past offers, and call booking numbers. And excuse me, the problem with this is that these questions reveal nothing about how setters perform when the conditions aren't perfect. In a real world environment, conditions are rarely perfect. So how much experience do you have is something that most founders ask. What offers have you worked on? How many calls have you booked? Blah, blah, blah. These questions feel productive, but they're not. Both top performers and mediocre setters have really good answers for these questions. The real problem, experience tells you where someone has been. It tells you almost nothing about what they'll do when a prospect ghosts, a script stops working, or a conversation goes sideways. The difference between an average setter and an elite one is not found in their CV. It is revealed in the moment the script stops working. And most interviews never get close to testing that moment. So the goal of an interview is not to find experienced setters. The goal is to find adaptable setters. So what elite setters actually need? There is a persistent myth in the appointment setting world that the best hires come with impressive screenshots, brand name client logos, and polished track records. In reality, the traits that actually predict long-term success are far less visible and far more valuable. What most setters screen for is years of experience, previous well-known clients, income like screenshots, leaderboards, confidence, charisma. These signals feel reassuring, but they select for performers who thrive in ideal conditions. They're not setters who adapt and improve when the environment shifts. So what do elite teams screen for? Number one is coachability. Do they implement feedback without ego? Adaptability. Can they adjust mid-conversation? Curiosity. Are they genuinely interested in the craft of setting? Critical thinking. Can they problem solve independently? Persistence. Do they continue without being chased? Do you need to micromanage them? Communication. Can they write clearly and naturally? Emotional intelligence. Can they read tone and shift their approach? Ownership. Do they take responsibility for the outcomes that they produce? The best setters are usually obsessed with improving, not obsessed with flexing. Hire for hunger and intellectual curiosity. The skills are far easier to train than the character. Okay, so we're looking for someone with a great character, not someone who wants to travel on private jets and live a luxury lifestyle. We want someone who is a nerd for setting. A prospect says they're interested, but they disappear after your first message. What do you do next? This is the question, okay? This is the single most revealing question you can ask a setter candidate. It requires no industry knowledge to it whatsoever. It requires no prior experience with your specific offer. What it demands is the ability to think independently, diagnose a problem, and propose a course of action without giving them a roadmap. So present it plainly. Don't offer context. Don't explain what you're looking for. Do not rescue them when they pause. Let them sit with it and let them think. The silence itself is informative. What you're actually testing, problem solving. Do they diagnose before acting? Creativity. Do they have more than one lever to pull? Do they have multiple ways of dealing with it? Follow-up strategy. Do they have a genuine re-engagement system to hand that they've used before maybe? Confidence. Do they commit to an answer under pressure? Adaptability. Do they acknowledge the need to adjust the approach? I've said this before and I'll say it again. There are many setters, so-called setters out there, who are just VAs and all they do is know how to follow a script. So adaptability is a big thing for a setter. It's one of the main things of a setter because they can adapt without a script. So do not help them, do not give them context, do not rescue them. You are not testing the answer, you're testing their thinking behind this question. So the question is, a prospect says they're interested, but they disappear after your first message. What do you do next? What weak candidates do. When faced with an open-ended, ambiguous question about a ghost prospect, weak candidates fall back on the one thing they feel safe with, the process they were given. This is not initiative. This is not problem solving. It is a reliable signal that the person in front of you will perform adequately, but only when the environment is controlled and the script is solid and the prospect is cooperative. I'd follow the script. If someone says to you, I'd follow the script, script dependency is the defining trait of a setter who cannot survive a difficult conversation. When the script breaks, and it always does, they have nothing left to offer. Okay, so a real setter can go off script. I'd send the next message in the SOP. SOPs exist to create consistency, not to replace thinking. A setter who defaults entirely to SOPs under pressure reveals they have never truly internalized the why behind the process. You have to understand that a setter who is actually good will understand how to go off script. I'd ask my manager. This response signals a complete absence of ownership. In a fast-moving DM environment, setters who constantly escalate things to the manager create bottlenecks and slow down the entire team. They have to be able to think for themselves. So red flags to watch for: script dependency, a setter who is dependent on the script, no independent thinking, no curiosity about the problem, inability to improvise, and zero ownership of the outcome. If someone says, I'll just use the script, or I'll just send the next message on the script, or I'll ask the manager, these candidates perform well only when the conditions are perfect, and conditions are never perfect for long. So what strong candidates do? Elite candidates don't recite a script in response to this question. They think in systems. Rather than reaching for a predetermined sequence of actions, they work backwards from the problem. Why did engagement drop? What does that signal? Why did the person stop talking? And what is the most intelligent way to re-engage with this specific prospect? They review the conversation. So strong candidates start by diagnosing before acting. They go back and read the thread, look for where the interest dropped, where the tone shifted, and where a message may have created friction. Okay, so they can see where it could have gone wrong. They change the medium. So if text messages have been ignored, they suggest switching formats: a voice note, a short video, a reference to something specific the prospect mentioned earlier in the conversation. They just try a different approach. They don't just go to the manager or go to the script. They personalize the re-engagement. So rather than sending a generic follow-up, they personalize it. They reference previous context, acknowledge the silence without pressure, and open a new thread of value rather than simply nudging for a reply. They ask a new question or they send a new piece of value. Okay? They think in sequences also. Elite candidates propose a series of touches, not just a single message. They think about the timing, spacing, and how to maintain warmth without creating pressure, demonstrating a real understanding of the prospect's psychology. The responses above are not memorized. They are not a natural output of someone who has genuinely thought about conversion, communication, and human behavior. That is exactly who you want on your team. You want someone who reviews the conversation, see where it dipped, where the interest dipped. They change the medium. They might send a voice note, for example. They personalize the message. They don't just send a standard follow-up message, they send a personalized one. They think in sequences, you know? So it's these kind of traits that you're looking for, not someone who just says, I'll just send the next message on the script, I'll stick to the script, I'll ask the manager. You know, you want a candidate like this. What you're really looking for. The highest performing setters rarely look the part at the first glance. They are not the loudest voice in the room. They are not the candidate with the most impressive screenshots. They are almost universally students of their craft, people who genuinely are fascinated by persuasion, psychology, and communication, and who are constantly working to get better at all three. So number one, they're students of persuasion. They understand why people say yes and no. They read, listen, and study, not to collect certificates. but because they are genuinely curious about what moves people to make certain decisions. They're students of psychology. They not literally studying psychology, but they recognize emotional cues in text. They adjust their energy to match the prospect state. They understand that every ghost, every objection, and every delay is a piece of information, not a rejection. Students of communication. They want to know about communication. They're obsessed with it. They obsess over word choice, sentence rhythm, and tone. They know that a single word can open a conversation or close it. They are always refining their messages and trying to express their ideas clearly and with warmth. And they're also students of systems. They think in frameworks. They document what works, they iterate on what doesn't, and they treat their follow-up sequence as living experiments, not fixed routines to be followed blindly. They're actual setters who understand persuasion, understand psychology, understand communication, understand systems. They're not just virtual assistants who follow a script. So you're looking for someone who loves the craft, they train rigorously, and they systemize their success. Okay, so that's all for this video. My name's Adam. I run Apex Setting. I own Apex Setting. We build appointment setting infrastructure for coaches and agencies. Infrastructures. We focus on sourcing setters, interviewing thousands of setters so you don't have to. We hire these setters. We train them for you. We interview them for you. We train them every single week. We install and place them into your business so they can produce results while we manage them. So this is my website, Apex Setting. These are some of our clients, okay? This is the website, my website. Basically what we do is we source setters. We interview hundreds and thousands of them. We filter through who are the top 1%. We install them and place them into your business. We train them up every single week so you don't have to because you're busy. And then we manage them 7 days a week as well. So it's this kind of service. This is a premium service. And basically what we do is all that. We take care of everything to do with appointment setting. We install the infrastructure of setting. As soon as someone doesn't perform, we replace them. And we basically take control of everything and making sure it's all taken care of, from the hiring to the interviewing to the training to the management to the results. Okay? If you want help doing that in your agency or in your coaching business, then check out the website and get in touch. Talk to you soon. Bye.